One of the textures that finds its way into many parts of Times Square is fabric. I'm going to zoom in into 3 different areas just to show you the fabric. I'm going to zoom into Thomas Knowles' shirt here, this billboard of Cindy Crawford, and then way over here, the little curtains way up in the building above the Sephora store. I'm going to open up the actual files here so you can see them. Here's Thomas's shirt. Now when I zoom in to this area, you'll see that there is in fact a texture to the fabric right in there. When we look at the billboard, and I zoom into this, you'll see again that there is, in fact, a texture to that fabric. It's getting even closer. There we go. And you can see that there is a texture to the fabric. You can see the little weaves. And then, of course, the little curtains, which are right here. And I'm going to zoom in on those, and we see that they do have the little weave in the curtains. So that's what we're going to create right now. I'm going to create that weave of a fabric. Now, it's going to be a pattern. And it's very crucial in the creation of a pattern that you have perfect symmetry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my grid. Show grid. And I want it to be much finer, the mesh, so that I have something to go by. I'm going to go into my preferences. I'm going to go down here to guides, grid, and slices, and increase the subdivisions to a much higher number, like say 12, which gives me these nice little tones back there. Click OK. And now I'm going to zoom in, just so I can see a basic shape right there, real close. So now, it does need to be transparent. So I'm going to create the actual pattern in a layer. I need transparency so that the little spaces between the weaves or the threads will be a space showing anything that's behind or even just black. But I don't want to see that white back there. So I'm now going to select based on one area of subdivision here and fill it with a color. I'm going to fill it with a slight off-white, like that, nice light gray. I'm going to go ahead and fill that area with that color. I'm going to duplicate this guy straight across, right there. So I have 2 of them. We'll call this verticals. A second layer, which we're going to call horizontals. I'm going to create a selection going across this way, fill it, and duplicate it straight down. There we go. Now this right here is going to be the basis of my weave. Now I want to give this a little dimension. So I'm going to go into the layer styles for the horizontal and give it a little inner glow, which I actually want it to be a darker tone. So I'll pick a nice dark gray like this, set the mode to multiply. So I have a little dark tone just like that. And I might bring down the opacity just a tad, just to soften it up. I'm going to go over to blending options, and I am going to set Layer Mask Hides Effects. I am going to turn that on, and you'll see why in a few minutes. Click OK. I'm going to Option, Alt, drag the FX onto the verticals so they have the same effect. So now, on the horizontals, I'm going to give them a mask. I'm going to turn the verticals into a selection by Command, Control, clicking on it, which made it a selection. Then right here in that mask, for the horizontals, using black, I'm going to paint black right into there, and right into there. Now there's why I had to go in there and say that the layer mask will hide the effect, because that way I didn't lose my effect. It didn't suddenly appear here. No, it just continues on to make it one continuous kind of an effect. Deselect that, and there we can see that this thread is going underneath that one. Now this is a pattern, so when it steps and repeats, the next thread here will be over, just like here. So it'll be over, under, and so on. Same thing with the vertical. Now that I have that, I'm going to go in here and create my pattern. I'm going to select it just like this. Now, it is a step and repeat. So right here, where it drops itself off, it picks itself up right here. So that's why I have a space on this side and here, bringing in these holes, and then here it's flush, because it'll be flush along the top. Turn off my background to ensure that I have transparency in between there, and I say Define Pattern. Now, Define Pattern was not visible, and that was because I had the mask selected. When something doesn't go right, it's good to look around. Don't panic. It's usually a user error. Now, you can't make a pattern out of the mask. So if something is grayed out, don't immediately start running around looking for your manual. Just look around and see what's happening. The mask was selected, so therefore, Define Pattern is grayed out. If I switch over to a layer, Define Pattern will become active. So I choose Define Pattern, and there's my pattern. I click OK, and it's done. Now we can test it out by pulling back, turning off our grid. We don't need to see the grid anymore. So we say View, hide the grid, and let's just look at the background here and create a layer on top of it. And we'll go ahead and fill that layer with our little pattern to see if it's working. So let's just say, use the pattern, and right here we have our little weave. Click OK, and there's the weave. We're coming close to look at it, and we see that we have exactly the effect that we want. So it looks like this nice little weave. So now, I'm going to be using this in many different places. So what's really advisable, since I made it quite large and you want to have it small, I'm going to create a new file for myself here. And I'm going to make it much larger than what I have. I'm going to increase this by 1,000 on each end. So I have a nice big file. And here, in a layer on top, in fact, let's throw away the background. We don't even want the background. I'm going to fill this layer with that pattern. So I have a nice big pattern I can work with. So now this large file will give me enough room so that when I bring this pattern into some other file, I have enough space that I can shrink it and do anything I need to it, and I have enough space that I can fill up any area that I need.